Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for this webinar. We will be introducing banking automation within NetSuite, exploring why bank connectivity is an important topic for businesses, including how to download statements and send payments with both ZoneCo and Accesspay. My name is Kevin Koenigs. I'm an account executive here at ZoneCo. Like many at Zone, I have been involved within NetSuite a lot in my career, both selling directly for NetSuite, as well as now I'm in the NetSuite partner ecosystem for a number of years. I'm glad to have you all here today. I will be your host running through the slides. The session is meant to be as interactive as possible, so feel free to pop your questions in the chat during the 45 minutes we have together, and our team will be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Kevin. And I'm Anita. I'm part of the product team. We're responsible for maintaining the product backlog and deliver on the roadmap deadlines. Tom?
Hi all, and thank you, Kevin and Anita. My name is Tom Livick from Accesspay. I'm the head of enterprise sales, responsible for our larger customers such as Bank of America and Citi. I'm also responsible for the relationship between ZoneCo and Accesspay. I'm super excited about this webinar. This is probably a world's first, where there's a live demonstration of how simple it is to connect NetSuite to your banks using Zone and Accesspay. Nav.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, guys. I'm Nav. I sit in the pre-sales team here at Accesspay. So I support Tom and the rest of the team with more technical aspects of projects and assist with product demonstrations too. And just to kind of echo what Tom said there, I'm really looking forward to combining our efforts and showing you guys a live and automated payment cycle.
Thanks, Nav. Regarding today's agenda, we will first give you some background about both ZoneCo and Accesspay. Then we'll go through bank connectivity and clarify what this actually means for organizations using NetSuite. We will then hand it over to Anita and Nav for a demonstration. After the demo, we will have a Q&A session, and as mentioned, our team is ready to assist, so feel free to ask anything away in the chat. A little bit about ZoneCo. We were founded with an overall mission to make life easier for finance teams by developing essential cloud software products exclusively on the Oracle NetSuite platform. As an organization, we are a registered SDN partner with employees all around the globe who basically live and breathe NetSuite. Our Zone apps are designed to automate critical processes for NetSuite users with the ultimate goal of enhancing the NetSuite experience for our customers. A high level about our various Zone solutions, all built within NetSuite. Zone billing is meant to handle more complex billing scenarios, all natively inside the walls of NetSuite. We have Zone approvals to easily build complex approval workflows. Zone capture, our AP automation tool, adding OCR functionality and much more to your NetSuite AP processes. Zone reconcile, which we will cover today, to automate the reconciliation for AP and AR transactions within one screen. Zone payments are bidirectional integration with your payment providers such as Stripe. Zone reporting, our pre-built Power BI reporting solution, and not pictured Zone STF connector to transfer information from a server to NetSuite and vice versa. I will now leave it to Tom to talk about Accesspay.
Thanks, Kevin. So Accesspay was founded in 2012, and we're actually backed by Silicon Valley investors with a vision to put business payments in the cloud and connect our customers' back office systems to their banks for both payment processing and statement collection. In those days, offering payments in the cloud was not something that had even been considered. We really are payment trailblazers with the first ever cloud-based service for UK payments in 2012, and in 2014, the first Swift-based service for global connectivity. That innovation continues today with a single application for any bank-to-bank payment type, such as ACH, wires, or cross-border in any country. Accesspay as a SaaS company is very focused on customer satisfaction. And one of our key differentiators is that we publish our customer satisfaction scores with our customer onboarding score of 5.0 out of 5. So 5 stars for excellence. In addition, for in-life service, we use Net Promoter, and we have a Net Promoter score of +33, which is somewhere between very good and excellent. This is backed up by a really high customer retention rate of around about 98%. We actually have over 1,000 customers ranging from SMEs to large businesses. The platform is processing about $1 trillion per year, made up of about 500 million individual transactions. So this really is a large scale platform that Accesspay is offering. The solution is global, and we're able to use the Swift network. We can connect to over 11,000 banks. Okay, so why is it that we've got so many customers? Why is it we've got 1,000 customers? What are these businesses using Accesspay for? Well, the first reason, and the reason is that back office systems like NetSuite don't connect to the business's banks. And the reverse is also true, that most banks will not connect directly to NetSuite. Unfortunately, there isn't a plug and play solution. So businesses are using bank portals as a manual process to able to connect to their banks. The issue with bank portals is that they're inefficient, using expensive finance resources to upload payment files or download statement data. They're also a security risk. I could commit the perfect fraud if I wanted to by manually changing the bank details of the payment on the way out, and then using the statement data, hiding that fraud by changing that statement information. Finally, unfortunately, we're only human, and human errors will occur. So in summary, Accesspay's customers are more efficient, with 90% less time spent in bank portals. This typically forms the business case for most organizations, but the impact of replacing bank portals with automation really is transformational. Businesses are more secure and they have less human error, and automation allows the organization to consider finance transformation projects such as a global shared service center or payment factory. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Tom. So what are we going to showcase today? We have 2 Zone apps and 2 applications from Accesspay. One being ZoneReconcile to reconcile AP and AR transactions within one screen, and Zone sFTP, the connector to transfer data from a server to NetSuite and vice versa.
And on the Accesspay side, we've got 2 applications: the Unified Payments Platform, or UPP for short, for processing any bank-to-bank payments, such as ACH, wires, cross-border, or even intercompany transfers. The cash management application allows you to receive statement data automatically from your banks, view your cash positions, and then use the statement data to reconcile that in NetSuite without any manual intervention. We're going to demonstrate both of those applications in a short while.
So let's get to the topic. When it comes to transferring information from your banks, such as bank statements to NetSuite, or when uploading payment files to the banks from NetSuite, we talk about bank connectivity. This is the exchange of banking information to and from NetSuite. And this leads to some challenges, but thanks to automation, solutions do exist.
Thanks, Kevin. So there are 4 main challenges with bank connectivity. The first is bank connectivity itself. How do I actually connect my NetSuite system to my bank? What's the physical channel that we're going to use? Well, the answer is actually it's dependent on the payment type you want to make and actually what type of bank connectivity your bank offers. For most of the usual suspect banks, there are a number of channels such as host-to-host, API or Swift, and also local payment rails. Accesspay solves the problem of how to connect to one bank or even multiple banks. Okay, so we now know how to connect to our bank or banks, but what about the file format? The bank might require specific file format, or actually the file to be generated with certain tags or fields, again, depending on the payment type. This situation is even more difficult if there are multiple payment types and multiple banks. Accesspay addresses this challenge by accepting one payment format from NetSuite and generating a bank-ready file format on the way out. The next topic is security. Everyone knows that bank portals are secure. At least they are for you and I as individuals. But as a business, you're handing over the keys for your bank portals to your employees. Of course, you have the approvals in place, but what happens if two people are colluding? They could be committing the perfect fraud, amending the payment details on the way out to pay themselves, and then amending that statement data on the way back in again to hide that fraud. I'm not saying that collusion happens all the time, but do you really want to run that sort of risk? Bank portals are effectively the wrong use case for business payments. Automate the process so no employees can actually touch the file and remove this type of fraud. Finally, the issue of approvals. Nav and I hear a lot of customers talking about approving the payments in their bank portals. One of the reasons is that they have always done that. They've always approved the payments in the bank portals, but it's expensive, or it's not even possible to set up an approval process in their back office system. If that's the case, Accesspay has the simple solution that the approval can happen in Accesspay before the file is released to the bank. The approval process is very straightforward, and Nav's going to demonstrate this shortly. It's literally a click and the whole process is recorded for audit purposes. Automation is more than just replacing bank portals. We've seen customers taking automation to the next level and using this to actually drive finance transformation across their company. Thanks, Kevin.
Great, thank you, Tom. So now let's walk through two typical use cases of bank connectivity without bank portals using a mix of both ZoneCo and Accesspay. First example, I am a NetSuite customer and I want to connect my NetSuite system to my bank to receive statement data to then carry out the reconciliation in NetSuite. How could I go about doing that?
So what you can see on the slide here is your Oracle NetSuite system on the left-hand side, ZoneCo connecting to NetSuite, and then Accesspay sitting in the middle. So that's the wheel. Bank connectivity channel, which Accesspay is managing, delivering it to your banks, and then the supplier banks on the far right-hand side. So your bank is generating that statement data automatically coming into Accesspay. And then the first step of the process is we can provide a user interface to be able to drill down from a country level position, combining all banks and all bank accounts together. And then from that country level, drill down to bank level, then bank account, and actually the individual transactions themselves. So the users can see how much, what payments have been paid in, or what payments have gone out. The next stage of the process is then actually to transform the file, if needed, to the format that's required by NetSuite. So that having carried out that transformation, if required, the file is then delivered, the statement data is then delivered to ZoneCo, and Zone then will take that and deliver it to NetSuite to carry out the reconciliation.
Great. And now for a second example, if I want to make a supplier payment out of NetSuite, how would I go about doing that?
Okay, so again, the Oracle NetSuite system is being connected to Zone, so the payment will automatically get delivered out from NetSuite. Anita is going to demonstrate this shortly. Accesspay would then receive that into our process, and then we have 3 steps. So firstly, we validate the bank details. We have a next step, which is a security and control process. So we're able to make sure that there aren't any fraudulent payments in that transaction. And then finally, if needed, we'll transform the file into the correct format, and we generate a bank-ready file on the way out. We're actually going to deliver the file to the bank using something called an unattended channel, and we manage that connection on your behalf, delivering it to the bank, so the bank will then process that and settle with your suppliers.
Thanks for that explanation, Tom. Now I'm going to be handing over to Anita for the actual demonstration, but please keep in mind, if you have any questions throughout, please put them in the chat. We would be happy to answer them. The floor is all yours, Anita.
Thank you very much for the great introduction. So yeah, I'm very excited now to walk you through the connectivity setup. Practically, we will be showcasing an already established connection with the Accesspay platform, and also we will be sending a payment file. So at this moment, if you cannot see my NetSuite browser, just simply please let me know. One thing to take into consideration is that prior establishing a connection, there are two prerequisites. The very first one is that we have to have our sFTP bundle already installed into our NetSuite instance. And the second one is we have to have the connectivity credential already in possession. So in order to proceed with the connectivity setup, and practically verify that our bundle is successfully installed, there should be one new menu option within the setup menu of NetSuite, and that would be the sFTP connector option. The very first step in this process is the connection configuration. We practically host the credential details and also verifies whether our connection is successfully established or not. So when considering the connection configuration, please note that there are two settings that we have to take into consideration. The very first ones are mandatory, and those are the credential settings. And the settings that are practically optional are the PGP encryption settings. Now, when considering a connection, there are two ways to practically establish it. The very first one is using a username and a key pair, and the second one is using a username and a password. Now, the selection between these two processes is practically due to internal security policies that practically can make this process mandatory. And also, moreover, if these internal security policies do require an increased security when considering a file transmission between NetSuite and a dedicated remote third party, an end user or practically an administrator can introduce the usage of a PGP encryption. Now, the PGP encryption practically stands for generating a key pair, practically a PGP key pair outside of NetSuite, securely loading the private key inside NetSuite and sharing the public key with a third party. And when these conditions are practically met, and we do have a successfully notification of our connectivity test, we are ready to proceed with our actions. The actions practically consist of the upload action configuration and the download one. We'll be talking about the download action configuration a little bit later. And practically the upload action configuration stands for the push operation, practically meaning with the upload action configuration, we can send a payment to the Accesspay platform. The upload action configuration is very simple. We have to state a name for our configuration. We pre-populate the connection that we will be using for this transmission. We do state the directory where our file practically needs to end up, and of course the file source, practically which is the file source we will be picking our file from. Please note that in this demo we'll be showcasing sending a payment file from the payments module of NetSuite, but there is also a possibility to practically send any type of file stored in the file cabinet. Also, considering the PGP options, there are multiple flavors that we simply provide. To simply proceed with sending the payment, we'll navigate to payments, payment processing, and payment file administration. We will be sending the payment file ID 22, and please know that from an end user's perspective, this process is very simple. An end user, practically an AP clerk, as an example, would only press the button upload EFT batch. By pressing this button, we practically initiate the transmission. Now, please note that a part of the upload action configuration, there is also a workflow behind scenes that is responsible for this sending operation. During implementations with end users, we do practically implement a very basic and small workflow, but we also encourage end users to use the full capabilities of NetSuite in terms of payment file verification or user access. So a simple example, the button of send EFT badge or re-upload EFT badge can be limited to particular users, to particular roles. So it just really depends on the internal business processes. Moreover, I would like to mention that when using Accesspay as an intermediary within this transmission operation, practically Accesspay fully eliminates the need of setting up a payment file inside NetSuite. So an administrator or an end user can use the predefined templates in NetSuite simply deliver the payment file as is to the Accesspay platform. Accesspay will practically pick up the file, convert it according to bank's needs. And at this very moment, I will hand over to Nev, so he can tell you more about the payment transmission.
Thanks, Anita. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully you guys can see that. Great, thanks for that, Anita. So now that the payment file has been delivered to Accesspay, within Accesspay, I can set up an email notification to alert me that there is a payment file waiting to be processed. So I'm here at the login page of Accesspay's payment platform, also known as UPP, which stands for Unified Payments Platform. So what I'll do now is I will log in to UPP using my individual user credentials, as you can see there. Hit sign in, and this will then take me to the submissions page of UPP. If I then filter to see today's submissions, I can see a file which was delivered on May the 25th, today at 8:22, and that's exactly the file that Anita just sent over there, which includes one transaction and a total credit amount of €365. You can see that the file is at a status ready to approve. So whichever users have user permissions to approve this file will receive an email to say you've got a outstanding file that needs approving. That user will log into UPP and will be able to click into this red button here. So you can see a bit of a file journey at the top. In the background, the file has been imported, routed, and validated. And of course, we can add these as manual steps within your workflow if you want to. If I just scroll down, I can see the one transaction within that file that Anita sent over. As I said, it's one transaction for €365. Of course, this could be a wire payment, it could be an ACH payment, and you can see the source and destination as well. If everything looks okay and you're happy to proceed, you can leave a little comment saying looks good, and that will be logged for audit purposes, as Tom mentioned a bit earlier. As soon as I press approve, that payment instruction will then get delivered to the bank. And it's really as simple as that. So it's important to remember that Accesspay is completely configurable. So of course you can add additional levels of approval within this workflow, or you can go the other way and have a complete lights out straight through process if you wanted to. So I'm sure you're thinking, what you've seen there seems very simple and very straightforward, and it certainly is for a user, but there is a lot going on under the bonnet. So once Accesspay receive the payments file, we carry out enrichment of the file, validation, and transform that file into a bank-ready format, and basically take all that stress and IT resource away from the client. So you can think of it a bit like an iPhone. You have your phone, you put your PIN code in, you head to the camera to take a photo or check your Instagram, and it's super user-friendly. But there's a lot of complex technology going on behind the scenes to make it user-friendly, and that's very similar to Accesspay. So just to give you kind of a real-life example, we've got a large client banking with JP Morgan in the States. Typically, the file formats that the US banks require are very specific. So prior to Accesspay, this client had file format and connectivity issues. And then using Accesspay, we handled the file transformation piece. So the file will be accepted by JP Morgan. And of course, we work with JP Morgan to build that direct connection into the bank, adhering to all the protocols set by JP. So thinking back to that payment instruction that we've just been sent, that's been sent off and delivered to the bank, and the money now will be exchanged. But as Tom explained earlier, here at Accesspay, we've got a cash visibility tool to complete that full cycle. So we know most treasurers are currently manually logging into their banking portals, downloading their end-of-day bank statements, sticking those into some sort of internally managed spreadsheet to work out bank balances, or sticking those statements into a reconciliation tool of some sort. However, with Accesspay, we can help automate those processes. We will instruct your banks to send your end of day or intraday statements, and we can convert those statements into a format that your ERP or reconciliation tool will consume and deliver those back to you. And we can also display that information to you within our cash management tool, which I'm going to show you now. So what I'll do is I'll head to our cash management platform, and we're in the admin page. So I'm just going to manually upload an end of day statement. And just to kind of be clear here, you won't have to do this. The statement delivery will be automated from your banks into Accesspay. But just for demo purposes, I'm going to manually upload a statement for yesterday. And I've got an end of day statement there. Hit upload, and great, that's been a success, as you can see in the top right hand corner. Along the top, you'll see a lot of functionality, which of course you can utilize. If we jump into balances, this is the primary page to see your balances. So you'll see this graphical representation down here, so bar charts, and you hover over and you can see your current balances. At the moment, we're showing this on a currency level, but you can filter and show this on a bank level as well. And you can filter by currency and a number of other things as well. To see your balance summary, you just hit this drop down button here and you can see your opening balance, your current balance, and a forecasted balance if you wish to upload one. Now, at the moment, we're showing the balances across all of your accounts, but of course you can add filters and you can get quite granular with it. So you can filter by currency or bank account, legal entity, account numbers. We also have tags. So we have a tagging feature where you can group together similar accounts and assign them a tag, and then that tag can then be used in reporting, in alerting, and of course here where you can see the balance across those particular accounts that you've tagged together. If we jump into the statements, you'll see all the banks that you have set up. Again, let's just jump into Barclays as an example. Here you can see you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 accounts with Barclays. If I just take a look into Nav's Barclays account, we can see the most recent statement data, which has fed into Nav's Barclays account. You can see on the 24th of May, there was a statement number 2 uploaded with 5 transactions in, and that was just the one that I uploaded a bit earlier on. So if I click into that, I can see some account details, and then you can see the actual statement, so the ins and outs, the debits and credits, which are fed into that particular account. And then you can download this information into CSV or PDF as well. So if I just press that button there, hopefully you'll be able to see this PDF document of your statement. As I mentioned earlier, we can also deliver statements directly back to the client to be consumed by your ERP or reconciliation tool, as well as showing it here within our cash management tool. So I actually scheduled a statement to be delivered back to NetSuite before this call. So the statement should have now landed back in NetSuite so a full reconciliation can take place. So I'll hand it back to you, Anita.
Thank you, Nav. Thank you for walking us through. We're now back to NetSuite. So just as to continue the entire workflow, we'll be now demonstrating the full operation. Practically, we'll be showcasing downloading the file nav sent to NetSuite, but also we'll auto-process it for reconciliation. So that the setup can take place, we'll have to navigate to set up again sFTP connector and download action configuration. Now, please note the download action configuration is much more simpler than the upload one. The reason is because there is no workflow responsible behind scenes for this operation. And when considering the configuration, of course, we state a name for a configuration because we can have, of course, multiple, especially when considering download of files from multiple folders from the remote server. We state the connection that we will be using. In our case, that is the Accesspay connection, and of course, the download directory from which we will be pulling statements inside NetSuite. Under the remote file section, we do expose all the files that are available on the server side. And also, there are a few user preferences. As an example, the very first one is the naming pattern. So practically, if an end user selects the checkbox, only download a particular file if it matches a particular pattern. And in that case, the naming pattern is stated here below. The system is going to download only this file, which in our case is listed in red at the top of our list. Once the file is downloaded, it is going to be saved in the dedicated folder in the file cabinet. And just in a while, I'll show you the file cabinet setup. And even moreover, we can initiate a remote download option. I will have to edit the configuration so we can display this setup. So practically, we can decide what shall we do with the file once it is downloaded in NetSuite. And there are two options available. We can either delete the remote file or simply move it to a different directory. If we select the move option, of course, we'll have to state the directory path where this file should be moved. Now we will initiate the download action. So we'll be pressing the download file button at the top of the page. To proceed with the file cabinet setup, in the file cabinet, we'll have to have two folders. And please note the folders have to be on the same level. So the first folder is the unprocessed folder, and the second one is the processed one. So the idea of these two folders is practically that the unprocessed folder has always have to be empty so that it awaits for new files to be received in the morning. And there's also one script that is practically responsible for moving the files from the unprocessed to the processed folder. And the reason for this script execution is the fact that in this operation, we are parsing the file, meaning that we are reading the content of the file and we are linking the transactions with the correct bank GL account inside NetSuite. The second script that is responsible for auto-processing the statements is a schedule script, and this script is practically converting this file into actual bank statements. Now, since the download operation is completed, we can navigate to the unprocessed folder. Originally had no size, but if we simply go inside the file, we can notice our file has been downloaded. Once the file is downloaded, it is ready to be processed. And when it is ready to be processed, we practically create a custom record under the bank statement auto import list. At this very moment, you can notice the file practically holds no for processed, and this practically means that we are ready to execute the very last script and convert this file into an actual statement. Prior we perform this operation, I would like to introduce you to one additional menu. And this menu is practically coming from the second application, which is the ZoneReconcile application. Under transaction, there is a new menu available named Bank Reconciliation. So practically the moment we execute the transformation of the file to an actual statement, we are supposed to see the file under the statements to process list. Just going back to the, going forward to the statement to process list, we can notice that we have 104 statements in total. Now we'll be executing the script, awaiting for one additional file in this list. So we navigate to the script deployment and practically execute the script. At this very moment, you can notice that this entire operation of practically downloading the statements, converting them, linking them to the actual bank GL account, and practically converting this file to actual statements is a manual process. We have to trigger and execute the scripts manually, but please know that in a real life scenario, especially the production instance, this entire process is automated. So we can schedule the scripts in terms of an interval starting from 15 minutes to 12 hours. They can be repetitive, and practically from an end user perspective, this operation is very simple. They would only have to navigate to transactions, bank reconciliation, and statements to process. Now we'll have to only wait that our script executes. Moreover, please note that within the bank reconciliation application, there are multiple options. A part of the auto processing will also allow an import of manual bank statements. The statement list practically stands for a list of historical bank statements imported previously. We do provide an overview of lines to process and, of course, a reconciliation report. Executing the scripts does take a while, and we should be there. We should be there at any time. Especially test instances are a bit slow when performing a script execution. I'll go back one more time to the statements to process list, close this for a moment. And considering the auto import list, yeah, our file should be executed and converted in a moment. Yeah, while the script is executing, I would like to maybe walk you through the statement list, which is practically a list that holds all previously imported bank statements. There are multiple filters that can be used. Practically, we can filter it through our bank accounts, and this practically view provide us with data whether our statements have been reconciled or not. So as an example, the orange color stands for statements that are still awaiting for an end user to finish their reconciliation. And the moment the bank statement is practically fully reconciled, the statement is displayed with white color, and there is a green check mark at the very top. But please note the bank statement list is practically populated once the statements from the statement to process list are saved. So ideally, the idea of the statement to process list is to practically be empty. So that would mean that our end users process our statements on a daily basis. So at this very moment, we can notice that the script has finished its execution. The bank statement to process list now holds 105 statements, and this is the statement that we practically process from the Accesspay platform. If we open the statement in edit mode, the system is going to practically display us the bank statement. I'll close the bank statement list for a moment. And the bank statement is practically going to be displayed in two sections. And the very first section is practically the bank statement header that is holding the bank statement balances, practically the starting and the closing balance. And the list below is practically the movements for that particular day. Before we finish, I would like to go to the home dashboard and simply show you a dashboard that we consider very helpful when importing bank statements and when using such connection. We'll be using the custom search for a moment. I'll set up the custom search. There is a state search behind scenes that is practically concatenating all the statements and displaying them in one portlet. And the reason why we're displaying this is just because when we have a connection with a platform as Accesspay, all statements that are practically going to be scheduled and incoming for a particular day are going to be listed on this bank statement reconciliation status. And even more, despite the fact whether they will be reconciled or not, an end user will have the end balance on hand for each particular day in the ERP system, in this case, NetSuite. Thank you. And at this very moment, I will be handing over to Kevin.
Thank you, Anita and Nav, for the great demonstration there. We have a few key takeaways that we'll highlight here, and I'll also open up a poll for you all. So having seen the ZoneReco and Accesspay integration to automate payment and statements with NetSuite, curious, what is your priority? Looks like there's a lot of both equally important and then a lot of bank statement automation. So that's great to hear. And we do have a few questions in the chat for both Accesspay and Zone. One that both myself and Tom can answer. Of course, people are curious about pricing. How does that work? So I will first answer on the Zone side. So the Zone sFTP connector. So if you're just utilizing that to get the payments from your bank, that would be a $1,200 a year cost, along with a one-time implementation cost of $1,500. And then if you would like to pair that with ZoneReconcile, so taking in the bank statements and reconciling those within NetSuite, that would also be a $1,200 a year cost, along with the one-time activation fee of $1,500. And Tom, would you be able to answer on the Accesspay side?
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah. So Accesspay is, as mentioned, a software as a service company. So we charge in a similar way to Zone. So we charge an annual fee and a setup fee. There are two solutions, those two applications you remember we talked through. So the first one was the statement application. And if it was just the bank feed without the user interface that Nav showed you, but just the bank feed, providing the bank feed back into that statement data, back into NetSuite, then we charge $1,000 per bank for that bank feed solution. And then for payments and statements, then $5,000 as an annual fee per bank. So hopefully that answers that question.
Thanks, Tom. And another question for Accesspay. Is there a limit to the number of banks that Accesspay can connect to?
Yeah, that's a great, this is literally the $1 million question. So the short answer is no, there's no limitation. The slightly longer answer is it is very much dependent on, so for example, take Russia, we won't connect to any Russian banks. Some areas in Africa, in Ethiopia, for example, where there's really no banking infrastructure and they don't offer bank connectivity for businesses, and again we can't connect to those banks, unfortunately. But generally speaking, in most countries, there'll be banks that are offering corporate connectivity or bank connectivity that will allow us to process payment and statement data. Sorry, just one more point, Kevin. I appreciate we're close to time, but actually statement data and getting that bank feed information is actually easier than payments. So if somebody looking at that poll, it was interesting to see that actually I think there was more people interested in the statement automation. And actually that's an easier process, and it's the reason why our price point is lower for statement automation, because Accesspay is already connected. If you remember, one of the things I mentioned was we're already connected to 11,000 banks on the Swift network. So your banks just need to send the statement data to Accesspay. We're already connected and we can receive that automatically. On the payment side, there's a bit more work we have to do.
Thanks, Tom. And then the next question for Accesspay. If a user wants to connect NetSuite to, let's say, their sister organization that they're using, Microsoft Business Central, can they connect both systems?
Okay, so I guess this is an interesting question, because you've got NetSuite on one side and maybe a different organization, a different part of the organization is using Business Central. And the short answer is yes, absolutely. Accesspay can become the single payment gateway for both back office systems. Actually, we talk about Accesspay being both bank agnostic and back office system agnostic. In other words, we can connect to nearly any back office system as long as it can generate a file from that back office system. Then we can connect to it and we can automate the payments.
And just to add to that, sorry, I was going to just say within the payments platform itself, then you can segregate data, so only users will only see what they should see and what's relevant to them.
Got it. And to keep you guys busy on the Accesspay side, the questions are kind of flooding in here for you guys. This is good. In the approval page in Accesspay, is it possible to add custom fields on the transaction lines which link to a page in NetSuite?
Now, one for you, I think.
At the moment, no, unfortunately not. We don't have kind of customization within the approval stage. We do have, obviously, you can have additional layers of approval and different workflows for different payment types, but a direct kind of link to NetSuite from that approval point is not possible just yet. Tom, I don't know if you want to answer anything, add anything to that.
Yeah, so I guess what's interesting is it is possible we could do that, because technically we could via an API service, couldn't we? Normally we connect the two systems together using a file process, but if we were connected via an API, then potentially we could update NetSuite with what's happening in the approval process in Accesspay. What do you think, Nav?
Yeah, definitely. And we also do have, obviously, a kind of an open API, which you can kind of poll endpoints and see submission statuses. So that could work quite nicely regarding that question as well. Yeah.
So I guess to answer it just in a one line is technically that's more than possible. It would be a roadmap item for us.
Thanks. And Tom, along the lines of pricing, you mentioned 5,000 per bank. Does that mean per account or per each bank?
Per bank, not bank account. Yeah. So some of our customers would, and this is a good question actually, because I didn't mention business case. But one of the key reasons why customers are going through this process is clearly efficiency, and it's based on human efficiency and human saving. So we can, as I mentioned, we can take 90% of their bank times that the finance team are spending in bank portals. And if we can automate that process as much as possible, then obviously there's the efficiency benefit that the customer gets. And that that process is based around obviously the costs that we would charge for the service we're providing, and therefore by charging on a bank basis, we would expect that actually a customer is able to leverage maybe it's one FTE, one full-time equivalent, or maybe even two full-time equivalents, depending on the size of the organization, even more than that. And therefore, based on $5,000 per bank, then this would easily pay for itself just by looking at one full-time equivalent within the finance or cashiering team. Hope that answers that question. We've got some more.
Thank you. Yes, we do have a few more for Accesspay. So the balances in Accesspay, are these real time? If not, how up to date are they?
Yeah, so yeah, I was just going to say, so the balances are as much real time as you want them to be. So the balances are based off the most recent statement data which we have received from your banks, and you can instruct your banks to send those statements as often as you want. Most clients we speak to find it sufficient to have end of day statement. They don't need more than that. Some, want it every 3 hours, but it really depends on how often your bank sends that data. And of course, the more often you have your bank send data, there'll be a cost associated with that as well.
Yeah, maybe if I can just add to that as well. So, some banks like Citi, for example, are quite happy to send the intraday statement information. So if anybody's familiar with it, that's the MT 942, and that they can send that every 15 minutes. So it's almost real time. The beauty of using this Swift statement data over something like open banking is actually this data is very rich. So it allows the reconciliation process to happen in NetSuite, whereas we've seen using open banking data feeds, the data isn't as rich, and therefore it might not be possible to carry out the reconciliation. Whereas using 942 data or the equivalent, there are other types, but you're absolutely going to be able to reconcile the transactions.
Great. And does the system send payment notices or remittances to vendors?
Shall I take that one, Nav?
Go for it, Tom.
Yeah. So yes and no is the answer. So no is it doesn't do it automatically, but yes, the users of the system can download effectively remittance advice and then be able to send that in whatever form, whether it's an email or something else that they're using to deliver that to say this has been paid. So it's a part of the process that a user is able to download from the Accesspay user interface and send that separately to the beneficiary.
Got it. And can you approve multiple files at the same time?
Now, one for you.
Yeah, cheers, Tom. So at the moment, you would have to click into each file, and you don't have to approve individual transactions. You can approve the file as a whole. It doesn't really make much sense to kind of have the ability to kind of select loads of files and click approve, because people would avoid looking, clicking into the file and actually checking that the data is correct. So you can approve the file as a whole with the transactions in there, but you wouldn't be able to kind of select 10 files and just say approve. You'd have to actually go in and approve the individual file itself.
Thanks. And there's one last, more specific question. One of the listeners has HSBC in the UK, Fortress Private Bank in the US, and AIB in Ireland for their 3 subsidiaries. Would those be able to connect?
Okay, so HSBC and AIB, we've connected to, I don't know how many times, absolutely. Fortis Bank in the US, I'm not familiar with Fortis at least for making payments going out, but I would be, but in terms of statement data, I would expect that that Fortis will be able to send the statement data via Swift to us. On the payment side, we'll have to take that question away. Is the attendee able to confirm whether they're interested in statements or payments or both for Fortis? And we can come back on that point, please.
Both of them would be for Fortis.
Okay. So, as I said, for Fortis, I'm 99% sure we'll be able to get the statement data from them. It's because they're a private bank rather than being a normal commercial bank. But on the payment side, we'll take that away and come back. One of the options, I didn't explain this during the session, but one of the things we've done, I've mentioned, seem to be mentioning Citi a few times on this call, but one of the things we've done with Citi is use them as an intermediary bank. And what this allows us to do is connect to Citi, for example, and in this case, probably connect to HSBC, and then be able to, HSBC works as the intermediary and is able to forward it on to Fortis. The reason why this process happens in this way is because some banks don't offer corporate connectivity, in other words, business connectivity, but they are connected on the bank network. So effectively, there are different networks where they're connected. We know we can connect to HSBC as well as AIB. We send the payment to HSBC and they forward it on to Fortis, who would actually carry out the settlement. So that would be the solution, even if Fortis themselves don't actually offer business connectivity. Hopefully that answers the question.
Great. And I think there's one last question. It's a two-parter. After clicking upload EFT batch in NetSuite, what is the time delay until 1, the approver can approve an Accesspay, and then 2, until the bank receives the payment instruction?
So the first part, after clicking upload EFT batch NetSuite, it's pretty much instantaneous. You know, the file then will be delivered to an sFTP location on Accesspay server. We have a file watcher, which is always checking to see if there's a file present. It will pick the file up straight away and process it into Accesspay. So that is pretty much instantaneous. And it's the same on the second point. Once you hit approve, the payment instruction will be delivered to the bank. And actually on the flip side, which we didn't actually mention, of course, you get your statement back, but you also get what we call a payment status report, which shows on a transaction level whether your transaction has been successful or not, and that's a payment status report back from the bank, and that's almost instantaneous as well.
Thanks, Daph. And I think that's all the questions we have right now. As we're kind of wrapping up the webinar today, before we say goodbye, I wanted to mention that we do have an upcoming webinar next month on June 22nd, where we will be showing off our zone approval solution. So feel free to scan the QR code to register here, or of course, you can always reach out to our team as well. We're happy to set you up with that session. So I appreciate everyone for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out to either the Zone team or Accesspay team with any questions that you may have. We'd be happy to help you and would look forward to hearing from you.